It's chapter 21, and the end is near, in more ways than one. Welcome to Chapter by Chapter. Interestingly enough, chapter 21 starts out talking about luck. Kathy remarks how her and Tommy had deserved a bit of luck by then. So why do I find this interesting? Because Kathy doesn't consider their situation as clones unlucky in and of itself. She doesn't scream at Providence for the inequality of the world. She's unlucky because of everyday issues, trouble at work, upset stomach, etc. These are exasperated by Tommy's donations, but still, friends have died. Tommy has lost almost all of his vital organs, and still, it all seems so mundane. But they get their bit of luck when Tommy spots Madame outside a hairdresser's. And so, armed with Tommy's animal drawings, they follow her, hoping for a chance to ask her for a deferral. Kathy and Tommy eventually find themselves outside Madame's gate. As she finds her key, Kathy calls out, knowing their chances will improve if she takes the initiative over Tommy, who has gotten increasingly nervous as they approached her home. Madame's reaction is just as creepy as you'd expect, with a bit of surprise at the end. On page 248, Kathy tells us, "It was only a polite, 'excuse me,' but she spun round like I'd thrown something at her. And as her gaze fell on us, a chill passed through me, much like the one I'd felt years ago, that time we'd waylaid her outside the main house. Her eyes were as cold and her face maybe even more severe than I remembered. I don't know if she recognized us at that point, but without doubt, she saw and decided in a second what we were. Because you could see her stiffen, as if a pair of large spiders was set to crawl towards her. Then, something changed in her expression. It didn't become warmer exactly, but that revulsion got put away somewhere, and she studied us, carefully, squinting in the setting sun." So obviously Madame's warmth is a bit of a surprise, and the surprises don't stop there. When Kathy and Tommy bring up Hailsham, Madame actually smiles. And next thing you know, she's invited them inside. Stained glass and a narrow passageway make the inside of Madame's house dark and constricting. As Madame goes upstairs to take care of something, Kathy and Tommy are sent to another room, deeper in the house, literally ushered into the darkness. Inside the front room, where Tommy and Kathy wait, we find a few interesting items. For instance, there's a painting of an owl, a bird that often represents death in classic English literature. And Tommy finds a painting of Hailsham, though Kathy isn't so sure. She tells us on 250. "It's Hailsham," he whispered. We went up to it, but then I wasn't so sure. I could see it was a pretty nice watercolor, but the table lamp beneath it had a crooked shade covered with cobweb traces, and instead of lighting up the picture, it just put a shine over the murky glass, so you could hardly make it out at all. "It's the bit round the back of the duck pond," Tommy said. "What do you mean?" I whispered back. "There's no pond, it's just a bit of countryside." "No, the pond's behind you." Tommy seemed surprisingly irritated. "You must be able to remember. If you're round the back with the pond behind you and you're looking over towards the north playing field." We went silent again, because we could hear voices somewhere in the house. I find it really interesting that Tommy and Kathy disagree about this watercolor. It's always bizarre to visit a place from your formative years that you haven't seen for a long time, a former school or a childhood home. You realize just how imperfect your memory is. Objects have changed size, and things once envisioned in glowing nostalgia now appear drab and ordinary. Now, imagine never being able to revisit this place, for that's what's happened to Kathy and Tommy. So this painting, that could be of anywhere, even places fictitious, tells us a lot more about Kathy and Tommy than it does about Hailsham. Tommy views it with certainty, desperate for it to be their old school, their youth, their innocence. Kathy, in almost Ruth-like fashion, hesitates to make the painting Hailsham. We've talked about earlier how anytime you reminisce, it's a buying in by both parties, and for most of the novel, Kathy has been buying in and someone like Ruth has not. But in this instance, Kathy chooses to not buy in. And really, throughout the novel, characters look for pieces of their past. But I find Kathy's take on the painting very interesting. For now, just take note of it because we'll come back to it when we discuss the final chapter. Madame finally joins them, and there's a definite sense of unease and tension. Kathy senses Madame's uncontrollable discomfort toward them, saying on 251, "But when we made a move towards her, she too came forwards, and, perhaps I imagined it, tucked her shoulders in tightly as she passed between us." And Tommy's so tense, Kathy again feels prompted to intervene before he says something detrimental. And at first, even Kathy is tense. But then her long-prepared argument, the one she's been prepping for weeks, falls away. She explains on 252. "Madame now appeared to me like an intimate, someone much closer to us than anyone knew we'd met over the recent years. That's why, suddenly, all the things I'd been preparing in my head just went, and I spoke to her honestly and simply, almost as I might have done years ago to a guardian." For a while, the conversation is completely one-sided, until Kathy brings up how certain Tommy and her are that they're in love. At this, Madame not only speaks, she cries, not unlike the time Kathy noticed her watching her through the door, dancing to Never Let Me Go all those years before. And then Tommy starts talking too, bringing up the gallery, or as Madame calls it, her collection. Here Madame cuts in, and I think it's best to just read this section. Tommy starts on 253. "It's so you could tell," Tommy said. "So you'd have something to go on. Otherwise, how would you know when students came to you and said they were in love?" Madame responds, "And this is why you think I gathered all those things of yours. My gallery, as all of you always called it. I laughed when I first heard that's what you were calling it. But in time, I too came to think of it as that. My gallery. Now, why, young man, explain it to me. Why would my gallery help in telling which of you were really in love?" "Because it would help show you what we were like," Tommy said. Because of course," Madame cut in suddenly, "your art will reveal your inner selves. That's it, isn't it? Because your art will display your souls." Then suddenly she turned to me again and said, "I go too far?" And then we get a nice little dash of creep factor when Madame passes yet another question to Kathy's arm. Kathy realizes it was when she said this that the vague idea I'd had before became something more substantial. Do I go too far? And now, do we continue? I realized with a little chill that these questions had never been for me, or for Tommy, but for someone else. Someone listening behind us in the darkened half of the room. Madame brings out this someone, a figure now bound to a wheelchair, and seemingly washing her hands of all the conversation, she hands it over to this last headmistress of Hailsham, Miss Emily. See you in the next chapter. Happy reading.